Imagine you're at a hospital waiting room. Nothing serious, just that weird chest tightness you've been ignoring for 3 weeks. You're scrolling your phone, slouched in a plastic chair, eating vending machine chips for the second time today. Now, imagine the guy sitting next to you is a 30,000-year-old prehistoric human. He has no shoes, his knuckles are scarred, he smells like a campfire and something you probably don't want to identify. He has never taken a doctor, never taken a vitamin, never once in his life owned a mattress, and statistically, he would almost certainly outlive you. Let that sink in for a second. The lifespan trap. Here's where most people get confused. When scientists say prehistoric humans had an average life expectancy of around 30 to 35 years, that number is doing a lot of lying. That average is dragged down brutally by infant mortality. If a child in the Paleolithic era made it past age 5, past infections, predators, accidents, and the general chaos of being a small human in a very dangerous world, their odds of living into their 50s, 60s, even 70s were actually pretty solid. Skeletal records from hunter-gatherers populations confirm this. Older individuals were common. Grandparents existed. They weren't dying at 32 because their bodies gave out. They were dying young because the world around them was trying to kill them constantly. That's a different problem than the one killing us. Our problem is much more embarrassing. We built the safest, most comfortable world in human history, and then we used that comfort to slowly destroy ourselves from the inside. His body versus your body. Let's talk about what prehistoric man was actually working with physically. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer populations, groups like the Hadza of Tanzania or the Tsimane of Bolivia, who still live largely off the land, show cardiovascular health that would make most Western cardiologists weep with envy. The Tsimane have the lowest rates of coronary artery disease ever recorded in a population. Arterial inflammation, the kind that quietly builds toward heart attacks in most middle-aged Americans, essentially absent.
Why? Because they walk. Not on a treadmill for 30 minutes 3 times a week with a podcast. They walk 10 to 14 miles a day as a baseline. They carry things, they climb things, they dig. They squat, not as an exercise, but just because that's how you rest when you don't have chairs. Orthopedic researchers have pointed out that the simple act of sitting in a chair for 8 to 10 hours a day, which is completely normal for most office workers, causes measurable deterioration in hip mobility, lower back stability, and leg circulation. Our prehistoric ancestor never sat in a chair in his life. His posture was almost certainly better than yours. His grip strength would have been extraordinary. Analysis of Neanderthal and early Homo sapiens bones shows muscular development significantly beyond modern averages. Not bodybuilder mass, but the kind of dense, functional strength that comes from using your body as a tool every single day for your entire life. His lungs processed clean air. His gut was populated with a staggering diversity of microbiota from a diet of wild plants, varied proteins, and seasonal fruits, the kind of microbiome diversity that modern research increasingly links to immune function, mental health, and metabolic regulation. The average American gut microbiome, by comparison, has lost roughly 1/3 of its ancestral diversity. We traded it for processed food and antibiotic overuse. The sleep advantage nobody talks about. Here is something that will make you feel bad about yourself, because it should. Prehistoric humans slept with the sun. They went to sleep when it got dark and woke when it got light, with natural temperature drops overnight that modern research confirms are optimal for deep sleep cycles. They experienced no blue light, no late-night screen time, no algorithm optimized to keep them watching one more video at 2 a.m. Studies of contemporary hunter-gatherer groups show they average around 6.5 to 7 hours of sleep per night. Not more than us, interestingly, but the quality is dramatically different.
They cycle through deeper stages of sleep more consistently, wake less during the night, and report lower rates of insomnia. Insomnia, by the way, is so rare in hunter-gatherer populations that some languages don't have a word for it. It's almost entirely a disease of modernity. We invented the electric light, the smartphone, the 24-hour news cycle, and the 11 p.m. work email, and then we invented insomnia to go with them. Stress that actually makes sense. Now, you might be thinking, sure, he was physically fit, but wasn't he stressed? Wasn't he terrified all the time? Lions and starvation and all that? Yes, Sometimes, but here's the crucial difference. His stress was acute. A predator appears, cortisol spikes, he runs or fights, the threat resolves, cortisol drops. His nervous system returns to baseline. Your stress is chronic, the deadline that never fully resolves, the financial anxiety that hums at a low frequency in the background of every day, the argument you're still replaying in your head 4 days later, the notifications, the news, the performance review, the mortgage. Chronic low-grade stress does something acute stress doesn't. It keeps cortisol elevated consistently, suppressing immune function, disrupting sleep, contributing to inflammation, accelerating cellular aging. Our bodies were built to handle the lion. They were not built to handle a LinkedIn notification at 11 p.m. asking if you're open to new opportunities. Prehistoric man was afraid sometimes. He just wasn't anxious all the time. That distinction is doing enormous biological work. The one thing he can't beat. To be fair to us, let's be honest about where our prehistoric friend would absolutely lose. Hand him a case of appendicitis and he's dead in 3 days.
A broken femur in the wild is essentially a death sentence. Childbirth killed a significant portion of prehistoric women. Tooth decay, which was actually less common then due to a low-sugar diet, could still become fatal if an infection spread. Any serious bacterial infection before antibiotics was a coin flip at best. This is the paradox. The same civilization that gave us the sedentary lifestyle, the processed food, the chronic stress, and the blue light also gave us surgery, antibiotics, vaccines, and sterile childbirth. We are simultaneously the sickest and the most medically protected humans who have ever lived. Our prehistoric ancestors' body was harder, more capable and resilient in almost every measurable baseline way, but put him in front of a ruptured appendix and suddenly the waiting room looks a lot better, vending machine chips and all. What this actually means. So what do we do with this information? The honest answer is that we've been running an experiment on the human body for about 10,000 years, since agriculture, then industrialization, then digitization, and the results are starting to come in. The body we're walking around in was not designed for chairs, fluorescent lighting, ultra-processed calories, sedentary work, or chronic psychological stress. It was designed for movement, sunlight, varied whole food, social belonging, and danger that occasionally went away. We don't need to go back to living in caves. Nobody is suggesting we abandon antibiotics or modern obstetrics, but the evidence is pretty clear that the further we drift from the conditions our bodies actually evolved for, the more we pay for it, in metabolic disease, cardiovascular disease, mental health crises, and autoimmune conditions that were essentially unknown before modernity. The prehistoric human sitting next to you in that waiting room isn't impressive because he was tougher or smarter or lived some romantic ideal of natural life. He's impressive because his daily existence, by accident, by necessity, with zero intention, happened to match almost perfectly what the human body actually needs to thrive. He didn't exercise, he just moved. He didn't eat clean, he just ate real food. He didn't meditate, he just didn't have a reason to be anxious at 2 a.m. He was doing everything right without knowing any of it was right. We know everything, and we're still getting it wrong.